Well, I finally finished my review on The Undertaker's podcast. It's pretty bad, actually. I didn't do it to try to be rude or anything like that, but it's not the best. It's not the best in performance. I don't know if you've already watched any of the podcasts by The Undertaker or checked out the channel. It's called 6 Feet Under with Mark Callaway. It's not doing that great. And it was something that I was planning to work on before I became ill for the last few weeks. Phone's gonna fall. And yeah, it's not looking pretty. It's definitely some room for improvement, but there's a reason why The Undertaker's actually set up for failure on YouTube. It was going to be really difficult for him to actually perform well as a podcast, not just on YouTube, not necessarily because it's on YouTube, but in general. The Undertaker was never set up for success when it comes to a podcast, because you got to remember, he just did 30 years of kayfabe, right? 30 years of hard kayfabe where he's playing a character. He's playing The Undertaker. But the podcast isn't The Undertaker. The podcast is Mark Callaway talking about a character called The Undertaker. It would be super difficult for somebody to pull that off. It'd be like if Sting did a podcast where he's talking about wrestling, but he's Sting was a character as well, similar to The Undertaker. That's why everybody always wanted to see that match come to fruition. I do some wrestling content. Yeah, I'm actually going to be doing a review of The Undertaker's channel. I already recorded it today. I just went through it. I don't know if you're aware of this, but The Undertaker has a podcast on YouTube and other podcast platforms, obviously. I don't know. The first episode did 545,000 views, which is insane. The second episode did 100,000. So what's that tell you? Should tell you something, right? And I'll tell you why it's difficult for The Undertaker to do a podcast. Because The Undertaker can't do a podcast. The Undertaker's a character. Who's winning WrestleMania, Cody or Roman? They'll probably give it to Cody. Roman's had the belts for, what, a year, 2 years? It should be dropping by Sunday, Dash. Actually, it's WrestleMania weekend. That just happened by coincidence, because I was sick last week, so I couldn't record this. I can't record it if I can't talk. But yeah, I'm gonna try to hustle it tonight, the editing. It's not going to be as much editing as some of my other videos, like the Jim Cornette video, but there will be some editing. I'm not going to put out low-quality content, but I'm hoping by Sunday, before WrestleMania, is my goal, to have the Undertaker review out there. And I'll say this, because some of you may watch that review, I wasn't trying to be cruel or insensitive. I mean, I'll give it to The Undertaker. He had 30 good years as a wrestler, right? I met The Undertaker once before WrestleMania 13. I never have been to a WrestleMania, but I was living in Chicago back then during WrestleMania 13, and The Undertaker did a free appearance at a Burger King in Bridgeview, Illinois. And I met him, and he signed my Burger King cup. There's tons of people there. So, I mean no ill will towards The Undertaker. But, we keep saying Undertaker, but The Undertaker doesn't exist anymore. The Undertaker's retired. It's Mark Callaway that we're talking about. Random question. What does SA? I'm not sure what that means. Just another guy. Maybe clarify what SA means. Yeah, not sure what that means. But it was an interesting review on The Undertaker, because he is doing a lot of good things on the channel. They're doing a lot of good things on the community tab. They're promoting links. South Africa? I've never been to South Africa. I hear good things about it, though. I've never been to that continent. The only place outside of the United States I've ever been... Well, it's not even about being a fan, Dash. It's not even about being a fan. I just went there to review it because I ran a poll on this channel earlier, on my channel, and I basically asked what people want me to review next. And they said Conrad Thompson's podcasts on YouTube and The Undertaker's. Well, The Undertaker is one channel, whereas Conrad Thompson has a plethora of channels. So that's going to be a long review, and it's going to be a time-consuming review. So in the interest of getting new content on this channel, I went for The Undertaker's first. And I had never listened to it until I went to review it. And it's a bizarre listen. I'll say this. I'm not saying this to be insulting, but his co-host is, a decent co-host in that, but it doesn't seem like he's very critical. All right, just another guy. Thanks for tuning in, bro. Doesn't seem like he's super critical, but he's also not like a Conrad Thompson. I know Conrad's polarizing, but he at least pretends to ask hard questions of people like Bruce Pritchard or Eric Bischoff or Shivani. And this guy, it didn't seem like in the brief period that I listened to, like he was hitting the Undertaker with really like in-depth questions that would bring out good content. It's only your podcast is only as good as the questions, and can't put that on the Undertaker to be a content creator in that regard because he's always had producers producing for him. It's not like he was. I'm sure he improvised, and I'm sure he contributed a lot to that Undertaker character. In fact, we've heard that over the years, but he also had people like Bruce Pritchard, Vince McMahon, Pat Patterson, Kevin Dunn, Vince Russo, all these people helping him. So it's just weird because I checked out his channel. And I hear like Undertaker, this was in the Paul Heyman episode where they were talking about Paul Heyman, and the Undertaker's talking about like building his house, man. It's like, it's just funny to imagine the Undertaker like building a house or going to Home Depot. Clearly he does these things because Mark Callaway is just another human like you and I. But it's such a character that's been mystified over the last 30 years. So when you think about like the Undertaker sitting in a drive-through at Wendy's, it's weird, and it's not necessarily what you want to sit and devote an hour to listening to on a podcast. You want to hear about some of the classic things. So there was content on the channel before they started going live with the podcast, before they started doing the podcast episodes that did quite well. There was a video where he talked about his experiences with the Iron Sheik being his roommate, right? That's it. Yeah, hard to think of the Undertaker doing regular stuff like that. It just is, I mean, that's why the Vince McMahon videos, before the whole sex crime stuff, the sexual assault things, before that, I would listen to these videos about Vince McMahon from Jim Cornette or Bruce Pritchard, because it's hard to imagine Vince McMahon doing anything other than, it's about Rock on the WrestleMania. Oh, yeah? Your sister's pregnant. Thanks for letting us know, Daisy. So, yeah, there's this mystique about certain wrestlers, right? And The Undertaker's one of them, because, I mean, we only seen this character portrayed. I guess it'd be like down in Lucha Libre in Mexico, like Mil Mascaras, right? There's a Mystique or El Santo down there. Or, yeah. Sting is similar. If Sting started a podcast, he would have the same difficulties. Because it would be the Steve Borden podcast, not the Sting podcast. Because Sting's a character. Even though he owns the rights, it's not like he's going to be in full makeup doing the Crow gimmick or the Joker gimmick or the Surfer gimmick. He's going to be himself because that's who he is, right? And that can work if you're a Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast. No, I don't support Vince McMahon after those allegations. Yeah, that's really bizarre stuff, man. Very bizarre. I mean, it's really bad. I didn't read the court cases, but I've heard enough of these videos on YouTube. Sounds bad. Sounds really bad. Like he just hugely exploited a woman. And yeah, him and Laurinaitis, it's really ugly. I don't see how WWE is going to come back from that. I think there's going to be a lot more people being fired by Endeavor and TKO, because clearly a bunch of people knew about what Vince was doing. It's really nasty, like disgusting. So I would listen to these Vince McMahon videos by Jim Cornette, the Vince McMahon Omnibus, for example, where he tells all these stories about Vince, pre-sexual allegations, pre-sex crimes. And it's like even Cornette said it was hard for him to imagine the guy he knew 20 years ago doing that. But clearly something changed with Vince, or, maybe it didn't change at all, because you hear some similar things from the 1980s. It got covered up. Rita Chatterton, the Ring Boy scandal and all that stuff is really bad. Yeah, I'm with you on that, Dash. I was inspired by Vince McMahon and the hustle and the drive and the work ethic, but there's nothing inspiring about sexually exploiting people. And it's something that, he got away with in the 80s. It got brushed under the rug. People kind of heard about it, but this Janelle Grant, she's clearly not going to step back, and she's actually she's being strong for a lot of the women that were afraid to come forward. So I think a lot more disgusting stuff's probably going to come out about Vince. And it's unfortunate for wrestling fans who, grew up watching this guy and enjoying the product that he put out, because it makes it kind of difficult to look back at some of that old stuff that Vince was involved in and be like, it's just like the same thing with Cosby, all these different public figures that had allegations come against him. it's very difficult to still be engaged with it. And that's what's interesting about the Undertaker channel as well, because clearly the Undertaker's a person who's been loyal to Vince for his entire career, basically, since he left WCW in like 1990, yeah. And it's funny because one of the videos that ranks on the Undertaker's channel, I'll pull it up here. I should still have it. Let me see what it was called. The Undertaker's most popular short right now on his channel, if you go look at this, it's called Don't Sleep When Vince Is Around. Now, I believe that has 3 million views on it. It's called Don't Sleep When Vince Is Around. And my guess is that that has kind of gained popularity recently for the wrong reasons. You know, I didn't actually listen to it. But my guess would be that people see that title, Don't Sleep When Vince Is Around, and after all these allegations came out, it kind of takes on a new meaning for people. So there's new interest in it, negative interest, you know, unfortunate interest, but I believe that's why it probably did as well as it's done. But anyway, I just want to let everyone know that the Undertaker video will be out this weekend. I'm going to start editing it right now, actually. And if you're going to watch WrestleMania, I don't know who you're pulling for in the main event on Saturday, Roman Reigns and The Rock versus Cody and Seth Rollins, I think it is. Yeah, it's unfortunate. I wanted to see Roman versus The Rock. I don't really watch wrestling anymore, but that's what I wanted to see. Roman versus Rock, and, you know, it'll probably happen by proxy. There'll probably be a babyface turn or something that might set up for next WrestleMania. I kind of hypothesize it might set up for SummerSlam maybe, but I don't think they'd want to waste that match on a SummerSlam. They'd probably want to put that towards a WrestleMania is my guess, so I don't know. But thanks for watching, and I appreciate you guys. I'll see you next time.